Well, good evening everybody, and welcome to a very special live stream, which is actually just a very special video. And it's all about the question, am I a puppet, a media puppet for the communist government in China? I hope to answer this question and many more during this live stream. And of course, at the end there will be a Q&A. But until then, we're just going to get started. So, for some of you, you may know that I was on TV a short while ago. And what happened was, I basically, as you can see over here, was part of a big promotion piece for Shenzhen, which is the city that I, of course, have been living in for the last 13 and a half years of my life. And the gist of this show was they were showing how Shenzhen is a special kind of a city. And it's the kind of city that it doesn't matter what your background is, it doesn't matter where you're from. If you come to Shenzhen, you're basically welcome and you are part of the city. And so they have a saying in Chinese, the Shenzhen government made it up. It says, 来了深圳就是深圳人, which means, very directly translated, if you come to Shenzhen, you are a Shenzhen person or Shenzhen resident. And I mean, it's very obvious if you go to Shenzhen, the demographics there are so widely, spread out. I know for most foreigners going to China, you come to Shenzhen, you're like, oh, look at all the Chinese people over here. But at the end of the day, what you're seeing is a huge mix of people from all over China. The local population in Shenzhen, the actual natives, are so small, they're insignificant. They're sort of around 10-13% of the population, and it is a massive, massive population. So that's the whole point of the show that I was on, this thing that's playing over here, is they kind of wanted to show that even foreigners can come to Shenzhen and make it their home. And of course, they used me as an example. And I've been used as an example for Shenzhen for many, many years, not just, this time around. I've been on TV in Shenzhen for years. I mean, probably about 4 or 5 times over the years. I do have the footage, I could dig it up, but I'm not going to do that for the purpose of this evening. However, I have also appeared a lot in the local newspapers. Both the English newspaper, in fact, I've appeared so often in the local English newspaper in Shenzhen that the editor, when I was invited to one of their events, called me aside and said, listen, I don't know what we can do because you've been in our newspaper more than any other foreigner ever. And it seems like every time we get a new reporter, they start looking around for foreigners that they can interview in Shenzhen, and they always find you. And the editor guy was actually saying, I'm really getting tired of seeing your face. And I don't blame him, because I've been in that local English newspaper probably around 16 or 17 times over the years, which is ridiculous. But it's not only the English language newspaper. I have also been in the Chinese language newspapers as well. So it's just one of those things. People are saying the video is choppy. That sucks. It shouldn't be choppy. It looks fine on my end. Yeah, you can never figure out these things. I'm testing out a new live stream system, as I'm sure you noticed. Let me try switch over to a different camera and then we'll see. Okay. See if it focuses. Is that better? I hope so. Anyway, let's just continue. The fact is, I have been in the local press so often in Shenzhen, and not only Shenzhen, in other publications around the country as well. And I'm very often used as an example of how easy it is for foreigners to come and integrate and to make a life in China or in Shenzhen. But it's actually a lie. It's a lie because it's not easy, especially it's never been easy for me. In fact, because of my nationality, South African, it's been incredibly difficult. I have had to fight tooth and nail to stay in China. And in fact, most people in my position would have given up a very, very long time ago. So it's one of those weird kind of situations where they use me as an example for something that I'm not. Anyway, the whole purpose behind this video is, back in the day, when I first started making my videos on YouTube about China, I would very often be accused of being a spy, a Chinese spy. Okay, it's kind of weird, it goes both ways. And I'd have a lot of people accusing me of being overly positive about China and telling me, what are you doing living in that shithole? It's a terrible place with all these terrible human rights violations, and it's, you know, you're saying everything's fine there, but it's not. You're obviously paid by the communist government. And, you know, this is the kind of narrative that would go on in the comment sections of my videos, and it still does today. If somebody comes across one of my videos and they think it's a bit too positive about China, I will get that kind of nonsense in the comment section. But you see, I have come from a country where you can do absolutely nothing about the politics. A country that is quite literally falling down around my ears. And it's the kind of place where if you try to do anything about the politics, all you end up doing is putting your life in ruin and misery. And so I took that same attitude with me to China. Of course, in China, there is absolutely nothing anybody can do about the politics, other than to discuss it if they want to, and only if you're Chinese. If you're a foreigner and you try to start discussing politics, it's a fast track out of the country, basically. So, especially if you have an internet presence like mine, talking about politics is probably the stupidest thing you can do. It's about the same as sticking your hand in a blender while it's running and then injecting the wound with cyanide. It's really just a bad idea. So that's why, especially earlier on in my videos, because I was working so hard to stay in China, and it's such a difficult task to do long term, especially with my nationality, I stayed completely away from anything political, and I focused on my daily life, which is something I still do. Focused on the positives of living in China, which there are many. Although I'm going to be frank and honest, these days a lot of those positives have gone away due to the change in the regime and just the change in the attitude towards foreigners and so on and so forth. Now, let's see if we can get back to this camera and see if it's actually going to be okay. So, like I said, I was accused very often of being sort of a shill for the communist government or a shill for China. And I really do have to just point out that that has never really been the case. And this is so frustrating. I prepared this thing with all the articles. It looks like it's going to remain choppy. Let's just try this, see if it's better. So anyway, the answer to the question of this video, am I a puppet, a media puppet for the Chinese Communist government? The answer to that is absolutely not. No, never have been. In fact, my interaction with the government in China has been very minimal. The few times that I have interacted with the government, it's usually because I'm doing a job for them. And another thing you have to understand about China is it's not like the government. Every city and every provincial level has its own sort of government and its own bosses and its own guanxi, or connections as they call it. So what happens is, for instance, Shenzhen, the Shenzhen government likes me very much. I know this for a fact because they keep getting me on TV. They keep asking me to be a part of, all these different events and things like that. I get a lot of invitations which I've turned down, and a lot of things that I have done. And they like me because I've always shown the rest of the world what Shenzhen is really like. And I honestly do believe personally, no bullshit, that Shenzhen is the best city in China. And from many different aspects, not just the fact that it's been my home for the last 13 and a half years. I've traveled extensively through China, and although there are definitely parts of China that are more beautiful as far as landscape is concerned, Shenzhen has always been the best city to live in, simply because of its young population, all the technology stuff that I enjoy, the proximity to Hong Kong, etc., etc. You've all heard me talk about this before. I'm not going to rehash it. But so they do like me, and so I honestly do believe that they always are the ones that step in and stop me from being kicked out. Because there have been quite a few campaigns, especially of late. There is a massive campaign of these ultra-nationalists trying to get me deported out of China. There are forums and there are videos online of people teaching, basically you get these head nationalists, these Wu Mao, we call them Wu Mao Dang, which means the 50-cent army. And they go and they make a forum post and they'll say, this white pig is making China look bad, let's get him out of here. And everyone will be like, yeah, what can we do? And then the head guy will take screenshots and explain to them, oh, go here on YouTube, click here, click report, click this, put in this information, do this, do that, and the next thing. Here's a VPN, use the VPN so you can do it. And then they say, go to this government website where you can report spies. So go to the spy reporting website and go there and click here, add this, type this, etc., etc. So they have these sort of brigading campaigns against me. And the most it's ever resulted in is the police kind of contacting me and saying, hey, we've got all these people complaining about you. What is it that you're doing? And I explain to them what I'm doing. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, you're not a spy. So then they've let it go. It's still not nice to have the police come and knocking on your door talking about this, mind you. But at the end of the day, they're not stupid. And they're not, at least, well, they may be stupid sometimes, but they don't normally jump without a huge reason. The problem is the shift at the moment is making it worse because China is now closing up. And when I say closing up, I mean closing up as in they are looking inward. They are strengthening themselves within their borders by saying things like that foreigners really are trying to take advantage of us Chinese, and the trade war thing with America is not helping. The arrest of the Huawei CFO, criminal woman, doesn't help because they arrest her and all of a sudden, you've hurt the feelings of the Chinese people. We're going to go and arrest every single Canadian that we think will be important. And, the arbitrary arrests of these Canadians is a worry. And you can see China very often has a knee-jerk reaction which results in foreigners being used as retaliatory tools. And so at the moment, when the 50-cent armies are getting together and trying to brigade against people like myself, it can have real-world repercussions at the moment. And that's simply because of the environment that's going on at the moment. And Seamilk and I are going to talk about this probably next week. We're going to have a special live stream dedicated to what's going on in Canada because one of the two high-profile people that were detained and disappeared is somebody that we know personally, somebody that we've dealt with and who we know quite well. And so it's very worrying what's going on with the whole Canada thing, but we'll discuss that in detail probably next week sometime. So keep an eye on our channels to find out when that's going to happen. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is we have a very strange situation. We have the nationalists, which are being egged on by the government, by the way, and by society. It's basically they feel like they're doing the right thing. They're being told they're doing the right thing by being nationalist and loving China and looking out for China's interests. And so they feel very emboldened to continue to attack people like myself. Online and offline, they try their best to disrupt my life and disrupt my family's life, etc. But then at the same time, last week I'm on the national TV as part of a big fluff piece for, CCTV2, which is national, by the way, so everybody in the country sees it. Must have driven the Wu Mao crazy when they saw me on TV because, they hate me so much. So to see me on TV and their grandmothers watching me and stuff must have really, rubbed them the wrong way. And they're probably going to double down on their efforts now, I can tell you that much. Anyway, so the reality of the situation here is that you've got two sides, both accusing me of being a puppet for the other. You've got all the nationalists from overseas, the foreigners, saying that I'm trying to make China look good and I'm excusing all the human rights violations, etc., which, by the way, I don't. I find them appalling. I find it absolutely appalling what's going on in China, especially of late. There have been a lot of things that have been happening which are terrible. But once again, I come from a background where when you try to do something about these specific instances, remember, I'm not an American citizen. I don't have a government who would be willing to pull my ass out of the fire if I was put in a black hole detention center somewhere. And I don't have a consulate that would even visit me, because the South African consulate is quite frankly the most useless out of any nation in the world, I'm guessing, honestly. So if I get involved in these things, it's a one-way ticket to hell, That's why I don't get involved in the human rights type stuff in China, never have, and probably never will. And that's a probably, And on the other side, I get called by the Chinese Nationalists, somebody who Heimo Zhongguo, which means to ink black China. That's my job, is I ink black China, and I make money out of making China look bad. That's their funny little thing that they're going on about all the time, which isn't true. I talk about my life, and this is why you can trust what I say in my videos, because I talk about what affects my life. That's how I do things. I don't talk about the politics that I can't change, but I will bitch and moan when something starts to affect my life in a very negative way. So for instance, if I am going to bars and the bars are being raided by the police to try and catch foreigners on drugs, I'm going to moan about it. It's not me trying to make China look bad, it's just what's going on. That sort of thing. If the pollution is particularly bad, I will moan about it, However, if something is good, I will say it's good, and I will talk about the good stuff. So you see, I pretty much have, I'm between a rock and a hard place here. I've got two sides accusing me of being something that I'm not. But I can guarantee you, and I know that most of my viewers know, that I'm not loyal to either side. I'm definitely a Westerner. I'm married to a Chinese, and I've been living in China for longer than anyone who's 13 years old has been alive. And that's a long time. I really wanted to show you all the articles. I don't know why this isn't processing it properly, but I lined up a whole bunch of articles. I will try and show them to you in the future. But I did line up a massive amount of articles of all, ranging back all the way from 2006 is the first one, all the way up until now. So you can see that I've been actively part of the media and part of things like that in Shenzhen for pretty much the entire time I've been there. So anyway, that is really it. That is the be-all and the end-all. I don't want to keep repeating myself. So what we're going to do, guys, is we're going to have a short 1 or 2 minute intermission. And as soon as I'm back, I'm going to answer some super chat questions. So please get them ready, and I'll be back shortly. Look at that view.
I can, and I will, for a long time, even though I'm very hot and I'm dying. This is pretty spectacular.
It's fantastic down there, and we are, look at this guy. Props to him.
It must be very hard.
Good job.
Hey, SerpentZA.
Hey, how's it going?
Subscriber.
Fantastic. Awesome.
Good luck, man.
See you around.
That's crazy, really.
That is rather bizarre. 哇，你们非常好，谢谢你啊。
你好帅啊！
哦，是吗？哦，谢谢，谢谢，谢谢，OK。好好好好好。帅哥，我们可以一起拍个照吗？好，拍照吗？好，一起拍个照。1、2、3。 Welcome back, everybody. So it's going to be time to answer some questions. So please, if you have a question, I'll be answering super chat questions first, but I will also answer some normal questions too, because I don't like to be exclusionary. Give me a second here to switch over. Okay. So Daniela asks, can you make a Discord server, please? Daniela, I actually do have a Discord server, but because I'm not familiar with how it works, I have not actually, figured things out yet. It's quite simple. All right, Justin Humphreys, did you hear what happened to China Nonstop? Yes, I did hear what happened to him, and I've warned him for years. I do know him. I've never met him personally, but from the very beginning of my channel, China Nonstop, for those of you who don't know, is a French guy who lives in Changsha. And he makes sort of very poor quality videos where he just whips out a phone and films himself randomly talking about a subject and then turns it off. He's been doing this for years. He's got a huge amount of videos. And I tried to involve him in some collaborations years ago. But he refused to edit his videos and he refused to put any effort into what he did. So he never really made the cut. And he absolutely hated my guts. And so he's made a bunch of videos ranting about me. And he also did some, silly things back in the day by leaving comments in my videos, saying like, go check out my channel. I make better videos about China, that kind of nonsense. So we've never really seen eye to eye. Anyway, he started to make some very critical videos about China. I warned him to chill out. And the worst thing is that he, in his videos, showed where he works and where he lives. He would film inside his apartment. He'd film outside so people could read the signs. He would film in and around his school, the university that he taught. Now, that's the biggest mistake, because something you should know about the Chinese 50-cent army is that they love the internet and they can do nothing to you in real life because they're cowards. But if they find out where you work, that's the end of you, I'm afraid. So a guy did find out by watching his videos and spread the information online to his other 50-cent army. And what happened was the university got phone calls from these internet trolls saying that he makes these critical videos about China, and he lost his job. In fact, he didn't only just lose his job, he got called into the Public Security Bureau, because what happens is, like I said, each city has their own sort of provincial level government, etc., and city level government. So he got called in and they were obviously concerned. And you have to also bear in mind that it depends on the city that you live in and where you live and how things are going to go down. But basically what happened is they took his passport away and told him he has to make positive videos about China if he wants his passport back. So he made a bunch of fake positive videos about China. And then they told him he has to stop making videos about China, and they didn't renew his visa. And so he had to leave China. So he lost his job, he lost his life. He's married and has a kid, etc. in China, but he lost everything and had to go back to France. And that's what happened to him, and it's tragic, and it's a very good forewarning to anyone like myself in my position to never reveal where you work or where you live in your videos, because China's kind of one of those places that you can have real world repercussions if you're not careful. All right, let's see what the next question is. Quite a few here. Give me a second. People keep asking me about Chongqing and if I've made videos. I haven't made videos, and I've only briefly been through Chongqing on one of my motorcycle trips years and years and years ago. My impression was, at that time, that it was incredibly polluted. But bear in mind that this has changed. It's now one of the top rising cities in China, and I do believe that you will have a lot of opportunity there. And there's a lot of good things about Chongqing that I've heard about. So I think it's a good choice. I still think Shenzhen's better. Okay, let's see. Slow Fox asks, is my wife a doctor? Yes, she is. She's a GP. I don't know if I've told you this before, but she works in the medical profession as a doctor. Jamie D. Any plans for future documentaries? Absolutely. I am planning on doing another documentary, just like Stay Awesome China, except in the third tier cities. And, so Stay Awesome China was in the first tier city. So you got to see the best of China, the best of the best. We want to go to the more smaller towns, smaller cities, and take it from there. But I am going to wait for this whole Huawei bullshit situation to run its course, because right now, if I were to be filming a documentary in a town somewhere with the current sort of attitude towards foreigners, I think it would land me in a lot of trouble and probably just not be worth it. So I'm going to wait for that all to finish. We're going to see what happens. I'm keeping a very close eye on the situation, because this is what's ruining it for foreigners right now. And I'm not blaming Canada, by the way. I'm blaming the way the Chinese government is responding to this situation. They're taking the arrest of this, company person as if it's a slight on the whole of China. And Canada has hurt the feelings of the Chinese people. I'm so sick and tired of this. It seems so easy to hurt the feelings of the Chinese people these days. Anyway, like I said, C-Milk and I are going to do a special video all about that, so I'm not going to get into that anymore, but that's when I'll do another documentary, is when that whole thing's blown over. Someone says, will you and Sasha be coming to the USA to stay? That is the plan. Of course, it's not possible to do it full-time, long-term, because of my nationality, but I am doing this thing with C-Milk. We're setting up a company, as a lot of you know already, and we'll be basing ourselves out of San Diego, and Sasha's going to come and live with me here at least for 2 or 3 years. Of course, flying back and forth out of China all the time in various different places too. Okay. Will I be in Shenzhen in January 2020? Yeah, I mean, that's the plan. Like I said, I will be going back and forth, but it all depends on what's going to happen with this Huawei case. Okay. George says he complains about the sideburns. Yeah, well, I did get rid of them in my last video, but look, they grew back already. See? Doesn't take long. That took like 3 days. So they're kind of a part of me, and have been. I've probably got the longest running sideburns in history, because if I go back and look at my pictures from when I was like 19, I've got the same sideburns. So they've been permanently attached. Okay, what's next? Are they going to make everyone, even you, use the social credit system? No. Foreigners won't be part of the social credit system because China refuses to allow foreigners to become part of the social system. You cannot get a Chinese ID card. So, foreigners are already at the bottom of the barrel when it comes to the social system there anyway. Try buy a house, see what happens. Try get a driver's license, see what happens. Try to take a train, see what happens. You always have to jump through extra hoops as a foreigner. And the whole point of this social credit system is to punish people. So if they do bad things, they get punished. And how they get punished is they get restricted from using the high-speed rail, or restricted from taking plane flights, or restricted from buying a house or getting a loan. Well, we're already restricted as foreigners. We can't get a loan for a house. That's an impossible task. You try as a foreigner, go get a loan from a bank in China. Not going to happen. Okay, so we're already at the bottom rung, so I wouldn't worry about it. What is your opinion of Angola? Angola, well, I'm sure you know that during the 80s, there was that massive sort of border war with Angola and South Africa. And I have family members that were fighting in Angola and who had been shot and all this kind of funny stuff. So Angola's always kind of been this bad place that shoots my family. So I don't really know what's going on with Angola these days. Although in the future, we're planning to do an ADV trip through Africa. And nowadays, I'm pretty sure Angola will be fine. Probably just have to watch out for landmines in certain areas and stuff. We'll see. Okay, let's see. How do Chinese people view Hispanics and Latinos? You know what? I'll be completely honest with you. I don't think a lot of Chinese people know the difference between white people and Hispanics and Latinos, especially if they've got lighter skin. Remember, most Chinese people, I'm talking about like your average, everyday, run-of-the-mill Chinese person who lives in a small city. They don't get exposure to foreigners except for in the movies. So when they see a foreigner in real life, to them, it's difficult to tell the difference. And I challenge you, if you're a foreigner, to quickly see a Korean person, a Japanese person, and a Chinese person, and a Vietnamese person next to each other and tell me the difference. Okay. Thank you, Mendy. Thank you. Okay. Winston, you have shown Naomi a few times on your channel. Do you also like to make electronic gadgets? Yes, actually, I do. I'm not good at it though. You know, I've always had a passion for electronics and gadgets and computers and stuff. And so I've gotten all those like development kits and stuff, and I can solder things together and I can make simple circuits and things, you know, and I've always enjoyed doing that. But I always feel like a dumbass because I always run into a problem and I can't really figure it out. And so I have to call my friend Pete, who's an electronics engineer, and ask him how to fix it or how to do it. And then he explains it to me in the simplest form, and it still makes no sense to me. So I kind of, you know, have to let that one slide. I'll stick to just messing around with computers and stuff. Okay. Dustin said he visited Yunnan province 10 years ago, and he said that my videos help put a lot of things into context. Do I have any plans to visit Thailand or Yunnan again in the future? Thailand for sure, through ADV. We're going to be doing an ADV Thailand series as well. I've probably, you know, we're doing Vietnam, then we're probably doing India. After India, we'll do maybe Japan or Thailand or South Korea or something. We don't know. It all depends on what you guys want at the end of the day. As for Yunnan, sure, definitely. I really like Yunnan. I like some things about Yunnan. I really despise other things. Okay, what is the general opinion of young people in China about Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism? To be honest, I don't think they know much about it, depending. Down in the south, people see these traditions and they just kind of take on the family traditions, but they don't really understand it very well. I know it sounds condescending and weird for me to say something like that, but if you want to see Confucianism, Taoism, Buddhism and stuff in practice properly, go to Hong Kong or Taiwan, because you'll see it correctly there. Because don't forget, not that long ago, all of that stuff was completely illegal in China. Everything was destroyed. People were not allowed to practice it. So you've got a gap. You've got like a generation gap where nobody knew anything about it. And then maybe the old people know what's going on. And maybe some of the younger people are now picking up on it and finding out from their grandparents and stuff. But there's that whole generation that just like blank, like a blank slate. Okay. What is the circumference of the Earth in miles? I have no idea. Sorry. Look it up. Ask Siri. Okay, what else is going on here? Doing a day trip from Hong Kong to Shenzhen mid-year. What are some good places to visit? I actually have a series called Shenzhen What to Do, and it kind of it's crappy. I did it ages ago, but if you look at it, it will still give you some good spots. Definitely go to Dongmen. Go to the Civic Center. It's got that huge, like, incredible building. In fact, you know, there's a place called Lotus Hill Park. And if you climb to the top of it, when I say climb, it's not climb. You walk up some steps. It's not like a huge thing. If you get to the top of that, you get a beautiful view of the city. And you can see all around. It's fantastic. I definitely suggest that. Oh, and of course, Huajian Bay for all the electronic stuff. Okay. Can you please say a big hello to Terry and Rodney? Yes, big hello to Terry and Rodney. And Heath asked, when are you coming back to San Diego? Let me see. Now, because I'm in San Diego at the moment. Like I said, I'm about to head off to Vietnam, though, with Sea Milk in a couple of days. But we'll be back, and we're planning on having another subscriber meet sometime in the future. Okay, let's see. Thoughts on Macau? Any differences with Hong Kong? Yes, absolutely. Macau is a very different place to Hong Kong. It's tiny. It's less international. And it's all about gambling. So if you can think of Las Vegas, it's basically the Las Vegas of China. Or Asia, I should say, not China, of Asia. It does belong to China, but it's one of those special autonomous regions. And you can spend Hong Kong dollars there because all the rich Hong Kongers go there. And of course, because gambling is illegal in mainland China, all the mainlanders come to Macau to gamble. And also Hong Kong. You're not allowed to gamble in Hong Kong except for horse races. So they all go there and spend huge amounts of money. It's crowded. I've got a video about it. Go watch it. I said it's called Macau versus Vegas. You'll get everything you need to know out of that video. What about the island disputes in the US Navy? Yeah, like I said, talking about these kind of political things is not the best idea while I've in my current position. But I will say that it's just a big piss take, really, on all sides. And we'll get into that at some point. I'll get into that at some point. Okay. Will we be shipping our Churchill bikes to Vietnam? See, we have a problem. The city where I built those bikes and where the bikes are registered has now banned motorcycles. You're not allowed to ride them in that city anymore. And in fact, you're not allowed to re-register them anymore. And China has some very draconian rules on vehicle registration, right? It's incredibly difficult to move the registration to another place. And in fact, it's impossible unless you live in that other place and have a residency permit in that other place. I guess that goes for everyone in the world. Everywhere in the world, you kind of have to live in a place to register a vehicle. But the problem is when they ban it outright and then it expires, it's gone. You can't just say, oh, I want to renew this and move it somewhere else. They're like, sorry, that vehicle doesn't exist anymore because, the city where it came from, you're not allowed to ride bikes. And the same thing with driver's licenses. It's weird. If you want to apply for a motorcycle license, you can't unless you live in a small city that still allows motorcycles. And then if you're a foreigner, you normally can't do it anyway. So if you live in a place like Shenzhen, it's impossible to get a motorcycle license. I had to do all sorts of funny under-the-table crap to get mine in China, and it cost me a lot of time and a lot of money. So we're going to be renting bikes there or buying bikes. We haven't 100% decided, but probably going to be renting something that's capable of getting us through the whole thing. Okay, let's see what's next. Is your family considering leaving South Africa? If they could, they would. And it's a terrible situation. There's very little, if nothing, to be done about it because the longer you stay in South Africa, the less your money is worth, the less everything you own is worth. The property is worthless and it will become worthless when the government comes to take it all away. And when you're old, like my parents are, and they're not like super old, but they're in their 60s. To try and start a new life somewhere else, especially if you don't have a pension because they run their own business and they've always kind of made their own way, it's nigh on impossible. But I'm trying my best to find a way for them to get out of there, but it's also kind of a willing buyer, willing seller situation because my parents have built so much there, it's hard for them to let it go. What's next? I made subtitles for your new documentary. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Okay. Can you make me mod, please, so I can remove the trolls? Can you make you... Well, I'm going to streamline this. You see, this setup that I'm using here, as you can see, with these different camera angles and things like that. This is a kind of a test. This is the first time I'm testing it, so I apologize for anything that's been a bit strange. But... this is going to be the new setup that C-Milk and I use for kind of a new podcast thing that we're going to be doing for ADVChina, which will be kind of weekly, where we can get into some real tough discussions about some tough subjects, etc. And at that time, we will need moderators, so we'll talk to you. Francis says, I'll move to South Korea as an English teacher soon. You and C-Milk have inspired me, and I want to start making videos like you guys. Do you have any advice? Yes. I do have advice. It's going to be fantastic. You're going to love South Korea. Everybody I've spoken to who work there, they love it. They do find it a bit monocultural, and it does get a bit boring for them from that point of view after a while. But they still have a fantastic adventure. Now, if you're going to be a vlogger, the most important thing that I've learned over the years is consistency. But not only that, it's important for you to offer something of value to your viewers. I try that all the time. I don't always manage to pull that off. But if I were to make a video and I would start the video saying, oh man, I'm feeling, kind of crappy today, but, I did this and I did that. If you make it about yourself, people don't care. They're not going to watch it. Why would somebody watch you if they can watch something on TV? You have to be offering them some kind of very valuable insight or some advice or something that they can use, because that gives people something to watch. So they might say, oh, it's that stupid guy in the suit again, but at least, when he talks about something, I can learn a little something. So I think that's honestly the best advice I can give you. What do young Chinese people, like your wife and younger, think about the Cultural Revolution? It's ignorance. It's complete ignorance. Most of them don't know anything about it because, remember, bad news doesn't make it into the newspapers and the media in China. Everything's just kind of, oh, that never happened. They don't care, and rightly so. My wife doesn't care. I tried to talk to her once or twice before. I don't like to discuss these kind of things with my wife. But I did once or twice try to talk about it and ask her if she knows what communism is, and I showed her the hammer and sickle, and she's like, because I was complaining about it, all these hammer and sickle things going up, and I'm like, do you know what that represents? She's like, I don't know what that is. We had to learn things about it in school, but no one cares. And it's probably a good attitude, to be honest, because you can't do anything about anything in China as a normal citizen. And if you do try to, I don't know, protest or do anything like that, you're just going to destroy your life and your family's life, because they like to do that whole thing where they'll punish someone's family to get to them. So it's just something people don't care about. And the young people certainly don't care about it. And they will only care about it when it's forced down their throat so much that they can't ignore it anymore. Okay, let's see. I currently assign 5 of your videos as required watching for my freshman engineering design class. Getting good feedback from the kids, and hopefully some will begin following you. Oh, thank you very much, Grady. That's fantastic. I'm super happy to hear that. And someone asked, what made you choose San Diego as your future HQ? That is a good question. What was it, 2016? I did that whole trip across America in my Corvette started in Arizona, went to the West Coast, went all the way up the West Coast, went into Reno over Donner's Pass in winter in a Corvette. Not the smartest thing in the world, but I did it anyway. And then I went all the way down to New York, and I passed through so many different states, and I met so many subscribers. That's what this flag is all about. These are the people that I met on my trip. This flag's a lot bigger than you can see in this frame. And there are signatures up there, down there. These are all the subscribers I met along the way. And it was such an amazing trip. And I absolutely loved every single place that I went to. There's not a single part of America that I went to that I thought was crappy. And I mean, I even went through Alabama and like down south. And I went through Memphis and, all these different places that I hear a lot of bad things about. But I'll be honest with you, I absolutely loved it, the entire trip. But what stood out to me was when I went to San Diego, I stayed with my friend Gary, and he's been in a couple of my videos. And it was just so relaxed and so chilled out. And you have to understand that when you've been living in China as long as I have, it's so hectic and so noisy and so busy. And as a young man, that's totally fine. But as you get a little older, that really starts to grate on your nerves. And so, he took me down to the beaches there and we chilled out. We went for coffee in the morning on the beach and had a burrito. And I was like, palm trees, people jogging, playing volleyball. And I was like, you know what? This is where I need to be. And so that kind of got that idea in my head. And on top of that, you've got access to Mexico, because I plan to do a bunch of videos in Mexico. And you've got access to LA, where, all the media stuff is. And that's kind of what C-Milk and I want to do, is we want to keep making documentaries and hopefully expanding. So that's really where the choice came. Okay. Mr. J. Samuel Steele, you have excellent taste and you provide a valuable cultural service for the post-geographical era. Thank you for your consistent quality content, and remember, you ain't shit till you have haters. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And although it gets me down a lot, somebody reminded me the other day, and let's see, I saved the screenshot actually. Someone reminded me the other day of a Winston Churchill quote, which I do appreciate. I don't know if you can see that. See if it focuses or not. There we go. Yeah. You have enemies? Good. That means you've stood up for something sometime in your life. And that kind of keeps me going, because I know a lot of people might think, you're thin-skinned if you keep talking about the haters, But at the end of the day, you have no idea how bad this is, because it's real world stuff. The haters in China constantly trying to upset my life. Like I said, they've tried to find my wife at her work before. They've made these massive brigading campaigns to get me deported, reporting me as a spy, phoning up the police to say that I'm doing illegal things, and I'm having the police banging on my door and stuff. It's not your average kind of hate where people just leave nasty comments. This is like the real deal. Luckily, I have a thick skin, and as much as they've tried, in fact, the harder they try, the more I'm apt to continue to do what I do, because I will not be silenced by a bunch of, cowards who rat on me like their uncles, like their evil uncles. Anyway, would you ever visit North Korea? This is a very interesting question, and I'm going to answer that next week when I speak with Sea Milk about the whole Canada thing, because it's actually related to that. I got something very special to talk to you guys about. No question, just have a few beers on me. Mate, I promise you that after this live stream, I have no beers in the house. I promise you I will go out and I will get some beers and I will have them because of you. Thank you. Let's see. Buy Sea Milk some eyebrows, please. Stay awesome. Also, will you need any vaccinations for your future trips? I had a vaccination when I was a kid. That little booster shot they give you. And it gives you like little dots around. And I remember the nurse saying to the girls, "Oh, it's a flower," and saying to the boys that it's like a rocket booster. Like when a rocket takes off, it leaves that. I remember that very clearly. I can't remember. It must have been about 5 or 6 or 7, somewhere around there. That's the only shot I've ever had in my life, like vaccine-wise. I'm still okay. I guess I grew up in Africa. I was exposed to a lot of crap. I used to walk through the bush and stuff, as a youngster, walking along the rivers and things like that, exploring in the bushveld. So I was exposed to a lot. I did almost die once from some unknown disease that I caught while walking around in the bush. And they thought it was meningitis. I had to have a lumbar puncture and all that. They stick that big needle in your spine. Oh, it was bloody awful. I think I was probably about 13, 14 at the time when this happened. And nobody could figure out what it was. So they just basically put me on antibiotics and kept me in the hospital for a couple of weeks. And I recovered. And whatever it was nasty, but I made it through. And I just don't get sick with these weird things. I don't know what it is. So I'm just lucky. So vaccinations, who needs them, right? Especially if you're getting them in China, because they're probably fake anyway. Let's see. 2019, Otaku Magazine comeback. Oh, well, I mean, who knows? Who knows? Okay, let's see. Are you and Sea Milk going to climb the wall when you go to Mexico? I was very surprised because I've been to Mexico now once. My friend Dan Beard that lives in Arizona. I was visiting him and he said, "Let's go for lunch in Mexico." And I was like, come on, man. That sounds like such a pain in the ass. Because especially for someone like myself, whenever I go into another country, I need visas and stuff, right? Because even if I want to go to Canada, I need a visa. If I want to go to Japan, Taiwan, all these places, I need to go and apply for a visa. It takes about a month every time. I need to produce all these documents. I need to have my plane tickets and my proof of residence and, proof of bank accounts and stuff. So I'm like, I don't want to even attempt it. It's like, no, if you've got a visa for the US, it's fine. And I didn't believe him, but he was insistent. So we went down and basically we went to Nogales, I think it is. I don't know how to pronounce that, if it's Nogales or something else. But we went down there and basically just walked over the border. There's like a bag scanner and put your bag through it and you walk over and there's one dude standing there and he looks at you and he's like, you just walk past. No stamps in my passport or anything. I was like, what the hell's going on here? Walked into Mexico. Had lunch in Mexico. Had a couple beers in Mexico. Those Tecate beers. Actually really nice. I like them. And walking back, you need to kind of scan your thumbprint and they look at your passport and let you back in. And I was like, this is way too easy. Because I'm so used to, like in China with Hong Kong, the Hong Kong border going in and out, this massive ordeal, which takes forever and is very daunting and very annoying. So for me, it was like, what the hell? It's that easy to go to Mexico? So we don't need to climb the wall. We just walk through it. Art of the Real. I'm on the banner somewhere. Fantastic, mate. Well, you're probably off the screen on that side then. And, you know, I must say, everybody that I met, everybody on this banner was freaking awesome. It was one of the best experiences of my life doing that trip. How are you on a dirt bike? Will we see them in Baja? Dude, I started riding on a dirt bike. Dirt bikes are my thing. I actually am way better on a dirt bike, and I actually have a dirt bike now. So, haven't ridden it yet. I bought it like months ago, and I haven't ridden it once. But yeah, dirt bikes coming up. Okay, there are haters in China, but they're also friendly citizens like me. Yes, you know, I have to say this, honestly. I talk a lot about the haters. And these haters do have a lot of effect on my life because they're constantly attacking me. But you also have to ask yourself, why is it that someone like myself who's constantly under attack and who's constantly moaning about things, why is it that I stayed in China for 13 and a half years? Because although I'll be going back to China a lot, if all works out, I'm not going to be living there anymore in the future. I'll be doing this kind of all these jet-setting adventures with Sea Milk and doing more documentaries and things in the future. But why is it that I stayed for so long? And why is it that I still love China? Because I didn't turn around and just say, I hate China. Why is it that I put up with this crap? It's because of the people there. You have to understand that although you can't count on them in an emergency, pretty much everyone in China will just ignore you if you're being attacked, which is a huge downside. The family that you make there, that's tight. Those people will help you. If you're part of a family, that's a different story. And in society in general, it does quite often feel like you're part of a family because it is one big cohesive, almost like a beehive. Everybody kind of works together. Individualism isn't a big thing there. And when you're there, you kind of feel like a part of that. Everything kind of works, you know, and you feel like you're part of the beehive. You're one of the drones, you know. You're just kind of doing your thing, and you're part of everything. You're helping everyone else. Everyone's helping you, and it is a nice feeling. And the people there are friendly, and they are hospitable, and they are nice. Of course, you get a lot of bad eggs, but you get that everywhere. So at the end of the day, I can't stand the politics of China, especially now. I can't stand the haters and the nationalists, which are growing by the day, and the stupid policies and things that come out all the time. But the people in general are fantastic. Why do you think I married one of them? It wasn't out of desperation, you know. I married one of them because I fell in love with one of them and because I can appreciate, at least her generation, the culture and the sort of way things work. So for all the awesome Chinese people who do watch my stuff, like DZLO, is that how you say it? DZLO. Okay. I appreciate you for watching my videos. Thank you. Yay, Skyline C83. What's up? Shout out from Nippon. All right. Hopefully see you there one of these days. Hey, Dan. Nice to see you. All right. Here's another question. My wife and I are considering moving to China to teach English. Are we crazy to consider this? We are Americans, early 50s. Children have grown, and I like the idea of adventures. Yeah, you can do it. You know, don't forget, China has a rule that if you're 60 years old, you're not allowed to get a work visa anymore. So don't plan too long term. They have this rule. They don't like old people. No, I'm just kidding. But quite honestly, there is a rule that you cannot work. You cannot get a work visa if you're 60. I think it's 55 for women and 60 for men. There is a discrepancy there. I can't remember the exact thing. But if you're in your 50s, early 50s, you got a couple of years you can really go and live it up. And the cost of living is so low that if you have some money in the bank, and if you rent your house out or something, if you have a house in the US and you rent it out and you get some US dollars in your bank every month, you'll be able to support yourself whether you have a job or not. Of course, visas are the big issues, and so you would want a job to get your visa. My advice has always been, at least these days, my advice is, if you want to go to China, do it. But do not plan on long term. You will not be able to settle down there. And it would be a mistake to invest in property, like buying a house. I would never suggest that to anyone. If you're doing that, you're a fool, because it could get taken away like that. Because if you're a foreigner and you buy a piece of property, or you buy a property there, remember, it's only a lease. It doesn't actually belong to you. And you, as a foreigner, first of all, it's very difficult to get. But if you did manage to get it, it will be taken away from you, either by a dishonest spouse, or by the government, or by a bad situation. And if your visa's cancelled or something, you can't do anything, because you can't go back to your property. You cannot go visit your property. It's just a concrete box in the sky in a foreign country that you have no power over. And even if you do sell your property, and here's the thing, here's the kicker. A lot of people will say, it's such a great investment opportunity. You buy one and sell it next year or 2 years down the line, you can make a lot of money. Yes, good luck getting that money out of the country. As a foreigner, they really are trying to prevent money from leaving, and it's super difficult. So stay away from that sort of thing. But if you want to go there, live it up, enjoy the culture for a couple of years, do it. You'll enjoy it. It'll be fantastic. Okay. Right. Well, guys, it's almost time for me to finish this. I told myself I'd make it about an hour, and it's just about an hour, so I'll take another 2 questions, and then we're going to have to say good night. So, from New Zealand, Matthew Miller, enjoy watching your videos as well as CMilks and ADVChina. Remember, stay awesome. Thank you very much. I very much appreciate it. Okay, now to be fair, I'm going to go out of the super chats to the normal chat. I'm going to answer some questions there, 2 questions, so let's have them. Okay, Ahmed A says, I'm a 27-year-old in the same situation as you were in South Africa. I have 2 paths, higher education abroad or starting a small business in my shithole country. Which should I do? I would say higher education abroad. If your country, if you honestly believe that your country has no future, don't stick around. I know it's a tough thing to say, because a lot of people do overstate how bad their country is. And I see that a lot in America. I see these people bitching and moaning about America, how bad it is. Take a hike. Go live in South Africa. Go live anywhere else in the world. I dare you. Go live there for 5 years. Go live there for 2 years. I'm not talking about let's go to Bali for a holiday and jump around in a bikini. No. Go and live somewhere. Live. Get a job. Rent a house. Have a local spouse, anything like that. But go live somewhere else other than America, and you will see just how good America actually still is. But now I'm getting off the point. Back to you. If you think your country really doesn't have a future, get out. All right? That's what I did. And I've got friends who, my peers that I grew up with, who are in terrible situations because they haven't left. Even the people that were successful, in other words, they pursued their career, they bought a house, they did well in life, had kids. They're in a terrible situation now. The crime is so bad. The money is getting worthless by the day. And all their business is drying up. And there's all sorts of terrible things happening to them. So even the most successful people have built a life, built a house on the sand. That's what I'm saying. The foolish man builds his house upon the sand. It's what we had to learn when I was young, those silly songs that they'd sing in school. So don't build your house upon the sand. Go and study overseas, look for opportunities overseas, and see if it's possible to build yourself a new life somewhere else. That's my advice. And now the last question. Let's see. Last question. What is your primary source of income, and what would you recommend as far as business in China for a Westerner? To be completely honest, there are no business opportunities for foreigners in China unless you were to start something along the lines of sourcing and manufacturing, something like that. I wouldn't suggest it though. The majority of people that I see who are successful in China have been sent over by their companies. So they're sent to Shanghai to the branch office, or they work in Hong Kong, or they work in one of the big cities and they've been sent there and they have an expat package and they kind of live in a nice apartment and everything's set up for them. Just an average schlub like you and me going over there, you've got one choice, or two choices. One is English teaching, the other one is white monkey jobs. Neither of them are very appealing, to be honest. A lot of people wish that they weren't doing those jobs, and so they try to make up fancy things like, oh, I'm an investment manager or something, but meanwhile they're just teaching at a kindergarten during the day, and they have a fantasy of being something they're not at night. I was lucky that after years of doing the grindy sort of training center and kindergarten stuff, I got a job with that medical training company, so I could focus entirely on that. And that was, to me, a big relief, because I was dealing with adults, I was dealing with doctors, educated people, and it wasn't English teaching. Although there was, a big core part of that was English teaching, of course, because they had to go study overseas. I was actually able to do a bunch of other stuff, which was very cool. So I managed to get out of it that way and eventually make my YouTube channel, good enough that I could start to live off of it and, successful enough. And my entire income comes from you guys. No joke. Every single cent. What pays for my rent, and for me to support my wife and myself and all of these endeavors and everything that I own. I have someone at the front door. I wonder what that is. It's because of you guys. 100% because of you guys. Anyway, that is it for tonight. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. It's been absolutely fantastic. No joke. I've really enjoyed some of the questions. I hope you found this useful, and I hope it answered some of your questions. So, until next time, you know the drill. As always,
Stay awesome!